we're off cycle, so it's a little bit harder to get in everyone. So thank you for making the time. We'll go ahead and kick off the meeting. I'll call it to order at 1:33. This is the Executive Committee of Clean Power Alliance, our regular XCOM meeting. And once again, thank you. We've called the meeting to order. Just want to make sure that there is no public comment. There's not in Agora Hills, and I'm not seeing anywhere else, but please let me know if there is public comment anywhere.
I do not see any requests for public comment.
All right. Well, then we'll move right along. We'll move to the consent agenda, which will
can we call the roll first?
Oh gosh, I missed the roll.
Okay, Chair Klein-Lopez.
Been one of those days. I'm half here.
No worries.
Clearly. Sorry,
you.
Ted. Sorry, thank you.
Committee Member Maloney.
I hear you, Madam Chair. I'm the same way today, so but I'm here.
Committee Member Gold.
Here.
Committee Member Santangelo will be absent today. Committee Member Koksar.
Here, sitting in for Director Hicks.
Thank you. Committee Member Montero. Absent for roll call. Committee Member Dower.
Here representing LA County.
Thank you. Committee Member Crossar will be absent today. Committee Member Parkhurst.
Gotcha.
I see you present, but I'm not sure you're connected to audio yet. Okay, thank you. And Vice Chair Lopez. Okay, absent for roll call, but we do have a quorum.
Okay, great. Apologies for that. And now we will move to consent agenda, which includes our minutes. So if there is someone who can make a motion in a second, unless there's any edits to the minutes. Usually Director Parkhurst makes the motion, but he's.
I'll move or second.
There you go. You can second it. I think Dr. Gold made the motion.
Got to get faster there, Robert.
That's correct. I have a motion by Committee Member Gold and a second by Committee Member Parkhurst to approve the consent agenda. Chair Klein-Lopez, how do you vote?
Aye.
Committee Member Maloney?
Yes.
Committee Member Gold?
Yes.
Committee Member Koksar?
Yes.
Committee Member Dower?
Aye.
Committee Member Parkhurst?
Aye.
Thank you. This motion passes.
Great. Thank you. All right, moving on to our regular agenda. The first thing on the list is an oral update from our CEO. Go for it, Ted.
Great, thank you. And thank you for meeting with us off cycle. Just a couple of quick things. One is excited to let you know that between last week and tonight, CPA has been or will be the recipient of a couple of awards from good local organizations, and also shows the breadth of who we touch. So last week, we received an award from the Los Angeles Business Council that for our work on the SunZia project. And it was a very nice event at the California Club. Thank you, Robert Parkhurst and Aaron Ordauer, for attending. Tonight, we'll be receiving an award from Active San Gabriel Valley. So big award last week for, projects in New Mexico. And tonight, with a very local community-based organization, we're receiving the Public Agency of the Year award from Active San Gabriel Valley. So happy to report that. Another thing to note in terms of potentially getting out there, and you all will receive invitations to that, is Clean Power Alliance this year is one of the sponsors of the Electric Vehicle Pavilion at the LA Auto Show, which runs from November 21st through the 30th. As sponsors there, we have some tickets and passes to the auto show available that we will be inviting executive committee, but the whole board to utilize over the course of the auto show. And then in keeping with the EV theme, I know she's not here, Director Santangelo today, but we're actively ramping up our assistance to member agencies to purchase vehicles for their fleet, electric vehicles for their fleets. We've got something underway in Carson, obviously on that, but also helped Camarillo. I just approved that disbursement to buy 4 F-150 Ford Lightning trucks for their sanitation and street services groups in Camarillo as part of our energized communities. So nice to see those, not just the regular fleet, but also some of those workhorse vehicles that are out and very visible to be electric. And that's my operational update for today.
Great. Saw some love from Carson. Any other questions for Ted on this exciting development? These exciting developments. All right. Well, that's great. Congratulations to us all on the many awards as well. All right. Well, we'll move to item 3, which is our draft agenda for our November 6th regular Board of Directors meeting, back on track on our regular calendar. So I'll turn it back over to you, Ted.
Yeah, great. Thank you. First, consent item. We've been busy working away on getting a workforce development memorandum of understanding out in Ventura County with a number of partners to pair up with the 2 partners that we're working with here in LA County. We have all but one item resolved in that MOU on the technical side. But then in terms of staging the schedule of when it goes to the Board of Supervisors in County of Ventura and then our board, the quickest we're going to be able to get it on our board is December. So it's listed here as possible in November, but we need to sequence things. And Supervisor Lopez, I may be reaching out to you to see how to make sure we get it on the proper Ventura Board of Supervisors agenda to get this done as quickly as possible. It's interesting. This one will the Workforce Development Board in Ventura County has been doing these types of MC3 trainings, but given cutbacks in both state and federal funding for these types of activities, CPA is going to really play the role of backfilling here, the loss of some federal and state funding with our local funding. So we'd love to do like we're doing here in LA County, amplify it, but here we're preventing backsliding, which is always a good thing. There's one other item that's not listed on your agenda summary that we will be adding or intend to add to the consent calendar, which is a proposed agreement with Edison to become a provider for their capacity bidding program elect. Let's not get into the details, but this is still fallout from the fact that our customers have been deemed by the CPUC through their lack of approval of either our programs or waivers of certain programs for our customers to be eligible for the self-generation incentive program, which helps them buy batteries or offsets the costs of batteries in their homes. I think this is probably plan D or E in that attempt to make sure our customers are eligible. We first tried to get our programs approved. The CPUC sat on that for 6 months, and then finally said no for no good apparent reason. Then we tried to get the CPUC regulations changed. There was a item that was scheduled to go on the CPUC agenda about a month ago. It got held, and we haven't seen it appear back on the agenda. So we kind of now have to take matters into our own hands. There's no fiscal impact of this, no cost. We're going to be able to do this all with internal resources. We had hoped to fix the program structurally, but now we have to do a different kind of workaround. So that's on the consent items. Any questions on those before I move on to regular agenda? Oh, okay. Hearing none. Regular agenda. We're actually going to start the regular agenda this month with an information item. We tend to take action items first, but we're going to have a couple of outside presenters on an issue that is, quite live in the state, in our 2 counties, and in some of our local jurisdictions, which is grid scale batteries and their safety. Particularly in the wake of the fire in Moss Landing, also the ongoing permitting reform efforts in LA County around grid scale batteries. Certainly something that the County of Ventura went through last year. As well as some moves in some of our local communities that are well situated for batteries, but clearly with the fire in Moss Landing causing some concern. There's also new state legislation that the governor signed regarding the updates to fire codes around that. So we've asked Scott Murdishaw, who's the executive director of the California Energy Storage Association, to speak with us, along with Chief Richard Stillwagon, who is the LA County Fire Marshal, and about their perspectives on battery energy storage safety. The real goal here is certainly to educate. There's no action. We will be bringing, assuming we are successful with in negotiations, more battery energy storage projects to the board in the future. The 2 shortlisted battery energy storage projects that the Energy Committee shortlisted are both in Los Angeles County. So, they're coming more close to home. And I really wanted to have this information put out there and have all the questions answered and discussed, not in the context of a approval or not of a contract. So that's part of the strategy of just bringing it forward as an information item. We will, the next item will be authorization to issue energy prepay bonds. Our Chief Financial Officer, David McNeil, will make a presentation about that in a minute. The other 2 items will also be information. The first will be the presentation of our audited 2024-2025 financial results. I'm pleased to tell you that we expect later today the issuance of our 8th straight clean audit, 8 years of clean audits, which is quite a good track record. We've worked with now 3 different audit partners and 2 different auditing firms. So that is, we'll do that. The other thing I'll note is that the financial statements that I have seen shows having added to the net position of $136 million last year. really good growth in reserves and liquidity, and that we are also have our fiscal stabilization fully funded at 135 million. And that's also really good news in the face of perhaps market or rate volatility, which I will get to next, which is that we'll have, as we do every October, a sort of a rate outlook for next year based on Edison's projections for what their rates will look like in 2026, as well as the PCIA. And hot off the presses, I did want to give the executive committee a little bit of the preview. It is preliminary. We just got like 170 pages of work papers late last week, and you need to pull out from that a lot of information to figure things out. But the context here is that on October 1st, Edison raised its generation rates by 18%. So if you look in the second to last column on the right, we are right at the moment significantly better than our board approved targets for the fiscal year that happened in July. Of course, we got these new rates and comparisons. Preliminary, we're going through some technical items with Edison. It's never done till late December. But as we previewed earlier this year when we were setting rates, and I think you remember the executive committee opted for the high reserve scenario because of the prospect of an increasing PCIA and a decrease in Edison's generation rates in January. Indeed, that's what seems to be coming to the fore. So the preliminary direction is we see that there's a large and expected increase in the PCIA, 2.5 to 3.5 cents swing. So we will no longer be negative, but more significantly in the positive territory, our customers paying a PCIA rather than getting a credit. And that's combined with an 11.5% reduction in generation rates. So you see, raise them by 18% in October and decrease them by 11.5% 3 months later. The whiplash continues. What that does to our rate comparisons is we swing by, goodness, several percentage points from being much better than our targets to much worse than our targets. And we're at a position similar to where we were that last year and you see that in the middle box in red, where we got a little out of whack by January, and we did an interim rate reduction. The board took that action in February for implementation in March and brought things back into line. I think given where we see these numbers of close to double digits for two of our rates and pretty high for lean, is we're evaluating options to do another interim rate reduction early in the next year. We're just digesting what's happening and coming up with some options for what to do. Those options really revolve around the amount that we could reduce rates and the timing of that reduction. If you recall, last year we We waited until February for a March implementation. That certainly we could do that now. We could also potentially take action as early as December for a February implementation. So we'd only have those +7, +9, +14 numbers for a month. But all of those considerations have a fiscal impact. One of the benefits of waiting is that by the time February comes around, we'll have at least 5 and maybe even 6 months of full financial results. Right now, we're acting on we've only got 2 months of financial results for the fiscal year. We are running about 25 million ahead after the first 2 months, but that's only 2 months. That's not even a full quarter. If we were to try to take action in December, we'd have three months of financial results to base this on. So way more to come on this. We'll have more information when we get to the board, but we're definitely coming up with some options for something to do, some interim reduction in the first quarter of next year sometime. That concludes the agenda review. Any questions, thoughts, comments? Not unexpected, not something we haven't dealt with before. I showed that history where there have been several years when the Edison rate reduction or rate increases improved our competitiveness. We just try to roll with it, and we're well positioned to do so this year. I'll turn it back to you,
All right.
Deborah.
Thank you.
If there's any questions on that initially, I'm happy to take them, or any of the other items outlined for the regular agenda.
All right. Questions? I have a question. Are we considered a government enough agency to qualify? My first question is about the audit for some of the government finance awards that some of us get in our cities. We get an award every year for our fantastic results in auditing and clean auditing. Do we qualify for that kind of thing?
David, do you know?
Government Finance Officers Association, I think, is the big one.
We could look into that. I believe that the firms that are cities that receive that award do go through more intensive audit processes than Clean Power Alliance does, but that's certainly something we can look into and talk to the Finance Committee about.
Okay, just a question. More awards is better, in my opinion. I want to win at everything. And then my second question, and then I'll turn it over to Robert, is, as we build our stabilization reserve fund, is the goal at some point to just maybe enshrine some authority to staff to keep rates within a certain range without board approval, knowing that we're planning, like we've planned for this, right? We've planned for it. We've got money set aside. So, are we wasting 2 months because we don't have a meeting in January because that we're not going to get board approval? Are there ways that give you as staff more nimbleness to address the crazy swings?
I'm sure I've got an opinion on this. Matt's got an opinion on it. David's got an opinion on it. There are ways to do it.
Okay.
Certainly, we actually are currently employing that with the new communities, where we set comparisons to the new communities and are implementing those automatically. The board delegated authority. We don't have to bring new rates to the board. So that's one. So there certainly are mechanisms to do it. The question is is it wise in the normal course of business? And we know of other CCAs that I would be cautious there
Okay.
from a couple of places. One is we know of other CCAs that directly tie their rates and basically set a discount or a premium, depending on the product, at the beginning of the fiscal year, and then delegate to staff adjustments to maintain those comparisons. That leads them into fiscal trouble at times because it says that they have to do it.
Well, and I'm
And-
not suggesting that.
Yeah.
We've intentionally not tied our
Yeah.
to Edison for that reason. But I guess the question is, knowing that we always strive for lean to be, you know, 1% or 2 under, and we always strive for clean to be at about parity, and you know,
Yeah.
for those types of ranges that we strive for, you know, is it wise to always come back to the board, which, you know, is absolutely fine,
Mhm.
or knowing that those are our stated goals, is there more nimbleness that you need as staff that would be worth discussing with the board?
Yeah, there are other ways of handling it. Some CCAs delegate a range that as long as it doesn't get
Mm-hmm.
this much out of a target or that much out of a target year, you can adjust, and that if it's over a certain target, then you have to come back to the board. There's a lot of potential mechanisms. It's a lot of work for us. I also like the transparency of it.
Yeah.
The other thing
Mm-hmm.
is the other consideration. But you know, David's thought a lot about this. Matt's thought a lot about this. Lots of ways to skin this cat. You guys want to offer up any thoughts?
Yeah, so just building on the last point Ted made about transparency, when we eventually come back to talk about this particular rate change, and I'll just use, I know you're talking about this more generally, but just use an example. There's going to be some pretty significant judgment calls that need to be made about where exactly do we want to land, and how do we think about the financial implications of that, both in the context of this year and what it means for our reserve accumulation targets next year. So with that said, you know, I could imagine something with some maybe narrow band of flexibility, but when you have a really big swing like this, I think it probably is good for transparency and making sure we're all aligned on those judgment calls to bring it back to the board.
David, do you have any-
No, I think that's a great
Okay.
set of issues.
Great. Thank you. Robert.
So mine's a variation on the theme. When would we go back and look at our bond rating? Is that, you know, I think we just got it last year, I want to say. How often will we go back to that if we've got good financials, and what's your strategy and thought process on that?
So we got our A- rating from S&P 2 years ago. And technically, the rating agencies are always watching, but they do a formal review every 2 years. So we're going through that review process right now. You know, I think well, I don't want to judge the outcome, but I'm expecting a favorable outcome from that process. We've made so much progress financially in the last 2 years that I think that'll be reflected in the rating.
Great. Julian.
What if we just ignore Edison? Let them tag their rates to us.
Well, we've engaged in some transactions recently where we have turned the tables. But I do think whereas by not indexing and not doing sort of the automatic changes, we're about as disconnected as we can get. The reason we bring it up is the customers, and it's always the first question that we get. How much? What do you compare to Edison? And so we always have to, and it's particularly our large customers, they're always interested in that. We do custom rate comparisons all the time. We have this thing on the website. We're really active with the customers because that's often what they want to know. And so it's hard to just ignore it.
Well, they're better. I'm not going to belabor it, but they're better
Yeah.
than they once were. But the idea that we're going to adjust our rates twice, maybe 3 times, as a result of whatever it is that Edison does based on their bizarre logic, really is not a good business practice for us. We would never do this if it weren't for Edison. So what if we just set our rates, and if we really thought we were out of whack at some point, we could rebate some money?
Yeah, there are ways of certainly of doing that. Can you bring the that one slide back up? I think at least staff's view is and this is back to sort of what Matt said about the judgment call, is it's the magnitude of how more expensive you are. So if those numbers the last 2 years in January had been like, I don't know, +2, +5, +9, we probably would have just not done anything, or at least it would have been our recommendation to not do anything.
Which is what we did last October.
Which is what we did last October. That's right. If you look at in October of 2024, that yellow, we were +4, +5, +10. We didn't do anything. We waited until January and saw, and then it got worse, and then we did something. So I also think that's part of the judgment call of how much out of whack are you willing to are you, and I mean you, the board, willing to tolerate? I think we probably could have lived. We did in 21 and in 2021, we lived with comparisons that looked like October 2024 there.
Well, I just think that there may be some value in viewing ourselves more like a mutual company as opposed to a public held entity. And, the mutual companies look at their customers as their owners, and whatever they accrue in excess of what they actually need, they can return. So, if we were to, and this is probably more than today, but if we were to engage our public and say, you're our partners, and we're gonna be doing this, but we're here to share some of what, if there is excess, what comes back as excess back to you, then maybe we wouldn't have to be so concerned exactly about what our rates are month to month, but we could deal with it as a bigger policy, which is how do we, if we have significant reserves above something, how do we return that to our customers?
Yeah, thank you for that. And other CCAs have reached a point where they've not only hit their maximum reserves, but they're sort of breached their top levels, and they have engaged in refunds. So it's also, that is on the table at some. Maybe we'll never get there if we keep our rates as low as we need to, but it's definitely in the menu of options if we're ever hit that point.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I sense some board retreat discussions for next year.
All right. Okay.
Remember, for those of us who've been around for a while, I remember the board retreat when we first discussed seceding from Edison's union. So,
Yeah.
All right. Other questions about the agenda, minus the one item we're gonna dig into a
Yeah,
little?
Aaron's got one here.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, Aaron.
Yeah, thank you. And if Supervisor Horvath was here, she would reiterate what I think several of you feel of having been on this board for so long. There's always been this fluctuation. This is not a new thing. And so, to have some restraint in terms of how much we need to always be chasing Edison. And if I remember from the board retreat from several weeks ago, there seemed to be a consensus or several members who felt strongly that there should at least be one of our rates at a discount or at parity with that. So, just putting that out there.
Yep.
I actually had a question about the solar presentation, if we can get to that conversation, to that point. It's great. Thank you for curating that conversation. I think it's going to be very helpful. It's having been privy to some of that at the county. There are two conversations actually happening. One is about utility scale solar, and another parallel related conversation about permitting and safety of more small scale rooftop and other indoor solar things that we are also supporting. Are we confining the presentation and conversation to one area?
I think the board can ask anything that it wants. I've asked the presenters to really focus on the utility scale battery thing, because that's where some of the eye-catching fires have been, and that's where some of our local agencies have latched onto that as a potential bottleneck for future projects of ours. But in terms of batteries in homes, e-bikes charging in the garages, any solar permitting, these folks are experts in all of that.
Yeah, I would say, Chief Stolegen in the county has done I think a fair job of balancing, for multifamily housing, for commercial buildings of the type that we're starting, doing more of these projects at CPA and supporting our municipal governments, having to make reforms to make these projects work. And then sometimes they're recommending against them in certain contexts. So if that's of interest, that may be something just to prep him with.
Great. Thank you.
Really looking forward to that discussion. All right. Anything else before we move on to our presentation? Not seeing anything. So at this point, we'll move on to item 4, which is receive presentation and provide input regarding planned approach for additional prepaid transactions. Am I turning it over to you, David?
Yes.
All right, go for it.
Thank you so much. Pleased to be restarting our prepay program. We did our last prepay bond issuance in December of 2024, and we're moving on. Very excited to be moving on to potentially another slug of those transactions. We'll take the next slide, please. Okay. At our November 6th board meeting, staff are planning to request authorization to complete another $4.5 billion of energy prepay transactions over the next 12 months. And I won't get into the details in this presentation, but you will see on page 22, there is the summary of the board action. As of 2024, as we did in 2024, we're recommending the use of what we're describing as a two-step process for new prepaid transactions. This process is intended to enhance flexibility, increase competition between suppliers, and ultimately maximize savings for Clean Power Alliance ratepayers. So I'll go into more detail in this presentation into that two-step process. And we're looking for feedback from the committee. Take the next slide. Okay, by way of background, we've completed 5 prepaid transactions issuing close to $6 billion of bonds, resulting in $361 million of energy cost savings over the next 8 years. And that works out to about $45 million per year in savings for CPA customers. We've used so far, or we've issued, our prepaid bonds have issued, that we've issued have used PPAs that are equal to about 51% of our forecast load and about 55% of the total long-term contracts that we have available to us. In September, the Finance Committee reviewed our portfolio planning process and recommended that we request approval for an additional 4.5 million of prepaid transactions. And in October, the board approved service contracts with Municipal Capital Markets and Chapman and Cutler, who have aided us very capably on our first 5 prepays. Next slide, please. So going a little deeper into prepay portfolio planning. There's a number of constraints. We are not allowed, we need to have prepay contracts available to us to prepay. There is a legal prohibition on prepaying for contracts that exceed your load. Another way of putting that is that all of the energy that you prepay for has to go to serve customers and go to serve customer load. You can't just do these prepay transactions and then turn around and sell it wholesale. There's a need to maintain some unassigned renewable energy contracts. So contracts, we need to have some contracts available to us in our portfolio that we haven't prepaid to give us some portfolio planning flexibility. And we need to have slightly more bond authorization available for prepays just to accommodate interest rate fluctuations. So, and I can get into some more details about that. So looking at into the bottom table, we've our first 5 prepays, about 6 billion, as I mentioned. We're looking at doing another 4.5 billion. We have this planning reserve, which is to say these are contracts which we're not going to prepay, of equal to about 10%. And that totals to about 11 billion, which roughly equals the amount of contracts that we have available, or we have a number of PPAs that we have under contract. Next slide, please. All right, so we'll go and discuss a little bit more this two-step approach. So as we did in 2024, we're going to plan to present to the board a host of contracts that are in a pro forma or form of, and these are contracts for each one of the prepaid suppliers that we want to work with. So we get all these pro forma contracts approved by the board. And then the second part of the process is we would go out and run these pricing solicitations with these pre-approved banks. And whoever can deliver the greatest savings, we will award them an opportunity to go out and issue a bond for us. Authorizing multiple transactions and underwriters provides us with really the best available pricing and terms from the most experienced and highly qualified underwriters and prepaid suppliers in the market, and gives us an opportunity to transact expeditiously when market conditions are favorable. We went out, as you'll see in the next slide, we got approval to do 3 transactions. We anticipated those transactions would be spread out over a longer period of time. In fact, we did them in 5 months, and we did so because the market conditions were just really favorable to us. So having all that pre-approved by the board really allowed us to strike while the iron was hot. The strategy delivered significant savings to CPA, as I said, and those savings compare favorably with those of our CCA peers, which you'll see in the next slide. So this is all of the prepaid transactions for electricity that CCAs have done since 2021. You can see it's 22 billion of bond issuances and close to 140 million of savings, average annual savings for all CCAs. And in orange are the transactions that CPA completed. And the bottom three orange transactions are those three transactions that I alluded to that we completed in 2024. So you can see that the absolute dollar average annual savings that CPA achieved on our transactions is significantly higher than what other folks have been able to do. Part of that is because our bonds are issued, our bonds have been larger in size. But you can also see some of those transactions where the sizes are pretty comparable. And as I say, our savings compared favorably. So again, some of this is just the market conditions that exist when you issue the bonds. Some of that's about decisions related to timing of when you're going to do it. But I feel pretty strongly that some of that outsized savings is a result of us using this approach where we get a pool of banks to compete against each other for our business. Next slide, please. So we went through a process this summer led by Kate Freeman, who is our senior finance manager. And we identified 4 banks that can serve as underwriters. The first 3 you see on the list, Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, or RBC, these are the same underwriters we used last time. And this time around, there's an additional a bank, JP Morgan. So from our perspective, more banks is more competition. And that's a good thing for CPA. GS, Morgan Stanley, RBC, all very experienced with electricity prepays. JP Morgan has not done electricity prepay transaction before, but they have done several gas prepay transactions. They've hired a bunch of folks, frankly, from Goldman Sachs, which we worked with on the prepays over there. They have very strong legal teams, outside counsel. It's all the same kind of cast of characters who are advising JP Morgan. So we're pretty confident that they can get it over the finish line as well. I'll take the next slide. And then here we are coming to the proposed board committee timeline. This meeting on the 23rd. We're gonna do a deep dive again with the Poor Finance Committee into prepays, and we'll come back to the board on November 6th, requesting approval of authorizations, resolutions authorizing the issuance of up to 4.5 billion of prepaid transactions with any of the 4 underwriters that I just mentioned. We'll utilize approved set of form of contracts. We'll achieve CPA minimum savings parameters, and we'll limit the time period. So these are all parameters on which we would have to comply with, and that would be included in the board resolution. And then once that's done, then we go to the Triple CFA board and ask for their approval to do transactions. Triple CFA, just as a reminder, is a JPA of which CPA is a member, and they are the conduit issuer of all the CCA bonds, which you saw listed earlier. And lastly, I'll just mention that on page 23, there is a summary of all the prepay contracts if folks are interested in reviewing that. And I believe that brings us to questions.
Thanks, David. I'll just add one thing to the timeline. It will have been about 1.5 years since we last brought prepay authorizations to the board. So David and Kate will also be offering to do the rounds we have about 6 or 7 new board members who were not around during that last authorization, who are regularly attending our meetings. They'll be in addition to the finance committee, they'll be talking to, or at least offering to talk to those folks one-on-one or in small groups to explain this complicated financial transaction that saves us and our customers a great deal of money.
Fantastic. Thank you. And always good to do a quick summary for those of us who have been around for a long time, because it is very complicated. So it's never a wasted slide just to do a summary of what this is and why we're doing it, as you did here. And I just want to say that I'm sorry that our finance chair, Susan Santangelo, could not be with us at this meeting today, but I'm sure you made her very proud, representing the staff and committee discussions. So with that, I will call for questions. I see Robert's got his hand up, so let's start with you.
David, on slide 6, page 18, you said that we compare favorably, but I'm looking at most of them and we are beating everybody. I think in most cases. I think there's one where it was someone had 99.8 million and we were getting I don't have it in front of me here, but thank you. But someone was getting we were getting 2 to 3 million more, per 100,000 or per 100 million. Congratulations first, but how are we able to do better than other ones? So here's the perfect example. You look at the Goldman Sachs Feb 2023 999, and we were getting 7.7, and 2 lines down you've got the Ava one, the 998, and they were getting 6.1. So a full $1 million a year better on that. So how are we able to outcompete them? And congratulations for doing so.
Well, as I mentioned, a little bit is timing. The market moves fairly significantly in short order, and we've been able to benefit from some good timing. That's a big part of it. And then as I said before, I just the way that some of the other CCAs, and I want to be careful about what I say, but they select one underwriter, and then they're kind of stuck with that underwriter until they do the transaction. And the way we do it, what we've experienced is we go out and do a pricing exercise, and some of the banks say we just don't have capacity to do this right now, and so they won't bid into the price. And then there's other folks who will bid in, but they're like, look, the timing just isn't right for us. And if you came back next month, and then you have the third one who will just knock it out of the park. And so they really have the banks have very different appetite. In addition to the markets being very different and different market conditions, the banks have different capacities to deliver savings to us at different times. And so just by having that pool that you can pick from, and you're always picking the best, that just leads to really good outcomes for us.
I'll add one thing that is not on this chart, but some additional flexibility that we'll be requesting, which is in the past we've sort of targeted a specific amount per bond, and this time we'll be potentially we've targeted a certain number of bonds. This time we've resourced our providers to do up to 4 bonds. And we're not sure exactly what size of the bond each one will be up to that $4.5 billion level. So we're trying to learn from the flexibility and introduce a little bit more, because it may be that we can get more savings sometimes by doing smaller bonds, or vice versa. And so we'll utilize that to help keep the good track record going.
Thumbs up. All right, Julian.
So I have 3 questions. They sort of tie together. Excuse me. What's magic about the number 4? Why 4 banks? And in that bucket of 4 banks, if JP Morgan hasn't done it before, regardless of whatever else they've done, if 4 is not a magic number, then why are they on the list? And I guess tied to that a little bit is, how much money do each of them make on these transactions? If we're saving $6 or $7 or $10 million, per transaction, what's their profit in that?
Is there a third question? Or
Well,
was
those
that-
were three.
Okay.
Why four? Why four?
Yep.
Is that magic?
Yep.
Why JP Morgan?
Okay, got you.
And how much money are they making?
Well, 4 because there aren't 5. That's part of it. And if there were other qualified banks, then we would definitely consider them. But we feel like this is about the extent of the banks who are qualified and experienced with doing prepaid transactions. JP Morgan has done a number of gas prepays. So you have gas prepays, you have electricity prepays. They're different but similar. And so we feel as though their experience with gas prepays is adequate. They also have staff who have done a lot of electricity prepays. And as I mentioned before, they have a lot of like consultants, lawyers, et cetera, who we know who are very experienced players in this space.
But David, let me just challenge that for a moment.
Sure.
If there's no requirement for 4, why should we be the first that they do electric prepays on? I know you said that you think they're competent, but what's other than having potential, what's the driver for including them on the list as opposed to 3 that we already know?
The driver is we think that we can get more savings by including them in the pool of folks who are going to be bidding on these transactions. Kate, I want to say that RBC had not an electricity prepay. They had not done an electricity. So RBC was the JP Morgan in that role when the last time we did this. They had done gas prepays. They had not done an electricity prepay. We ended up doing their first electricity prepay with RBC Bank. And at the time when we went out and did that pricing exercise, they just rolled up their sleeves and they wanted to get a deal done. It was difficult market conditions, but they dug deep, frankly, to make the transaction happen. And we had really good results from that. So we have some experience doing with this approach. And now you've got someone who has the electricity prepay experience. Now they can come in and they can potentially do more business in our market. And we think that's a good thing.
Okay. And how much money do they make?
What's the right boatloads? I don't know. I'm trying to think of a metaphor for a really big number, but the banks make a healthy a healthy amount of money on all these transactions. And that's the other reason why we want them to compete with each other, because we think that one of the ways that they compete is deliver more of that windfall to us in the form of savings. So you can think of it windfall, you can think of it as a pie, and if they're competing against each other to maximize savings for us, that's going to create an incentive for them to shrink their piece of the pie and increase ours. But they're going to make a different amount. I'm not trying to be evasive. They're going to make a different amount on every deal. It depends on the deal size. But they do make a healthy amount of money. And put it that way.
Multiples of what we make.
Oh no, fractions of what we make.
Okay. Thank you.
Much less than half.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Other questions? No other questions? All right, then. You don't need any action, right? This was just
Yep.
receiving input. And did you get what you needed from us?
We got what we needed.
All right. Sounds good.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Well, with that, I think that does it for our agenda. Are there any committee member comments? It's a quiet crowd. All right. Well, then we can go ahead and adjourn this meeting. We'll be back on track next month. We will see you all at the board meeting on the 6th, but our next regular XCOM committee meeting will be on November 20th. So meeting adjourned. Thanks all.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.